Hey, this is Ramon. Channel is up before. That's Frank. I thought I'd answer some questions for theists. Bad Tempered Badger sent me a video while I was at work, and I thought it was a really good video and asked a fair question. Problem is, the answer is going to be kind of short. So I thought I'd also answer a few other questions from a few other channels. So I'm going to answer some questions from Bionic Dance. But our first question is from Deconverted Man. The question is, nature is beautiful and fantastic. It is massive. We are tiny. When looking at this majesty, it seems to many believers that this points to fine-tuning and therefore a grand tuner they call God. So his question is, going from that premise, what would a universe look like without a God? To answer that question is really simple. Put it simply, a universe without God would be hell. That hell would not be chaos and random, but instead a type of oblivion or suffering. That is what it would be. It would be suffering without hope. Then he asked a second question. How would the model be different without this fine-tuning? Would non-fine-tuning point to a non-God? And no. The Greeks have a great and very interesting god or titan, or sometimes what's called a primordial. It is the chaos god, literally the god of chaos. And he was the god of random chance, of disorder, of disunity, of the void, sometimes also called the chasm. And again, through the evolution of thought, through years and years of the development of ideas, he will become one of the influences on the Christian understanding of hell. The other ones being Tartarus, Hades, and being Gehenna, and the lake of fire. So those all together will mix in. But to think of heaven and hell or creation or God as a Christian Western centric idea is wrong. In ancient China, which is what I'm currently studying, is ancient Chinese history, they also had many hells. I think there's 7 hells in one. There's 1,000 hells in another mythology from China. So yeah, it's not all the same thing, and to think that these ideas generate from a theistic Judeo-Christian Islamic mindset is just false. These ideas are present in other religions and other cultures. So on that note, let's answer Bionic Dance's questions. So I'm not going to answer all of them. I'm going to answer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of her questions, because the other ones just don't pertain to me or my mindset, as I believe in evolution and I believe in science. So, question number 1. Why is "I don't know, but let's find out" not an acceptable answer? So my answer to this is "I don't know" is a very acceptable answer. But many people have attempted to answer most theological questions throughout the span of human history. And for me, it would seem a shame to lose all that thought just because of our or your current cultural or countercultural anti-theistic mindset. The next one is, does opposition to evolution come from a place of pride rather than ignorance of the facts? And I answer thus. On the religious side of things, it comes from a literalist, high view of Scripture. In the Protestant vernacular, that means that the Scripture is infallible and inerrant. You also find this among Muslims. They have a very high view of their Scripture as well. Hindus do not have such a high view of their Scriptures, but they do take them very seriously. But there are many animistic cults out of Africa that have an anti-Western science bias, And they consider science to be patriarchal and racist and biased against things such as praying to the mother goddess or praying to a storm. And this storm cloud will then strike lightning on your enemy or your enemy's house. And they will argue that there's proof of this. And this is a real argument that is out there. Look it up. This kind of ignorant thinking does not stem from theism or even religion or religiosity, as you guys sometimes like to say, as many anti-theists like to claim. Sometimes it just comes from good old-fashioned folklore, or even just from different assumptions. And these assumptions are what theologians and philosophers like to call presuppositions. And this can change your understanding of fundamental reality. For instance, this kind of thinking changes coincidence into a type of magic. Number 6, to bionic dance. Your definition of objective is false. And morality is not an opinion. Objective does not mean existing outside of a mind. Objective reality can be a concept. You can have a concept, you can have a thing called forms. So Plato's forms are a thing that we argue for when we're talking about philosophy. So what is a chair? Is there a form of chair? Is there an ultimate perfect chair in the world out there? And this idea, this concept of chair exists, and then everything that is like that thing. So concept of cat, concept of man, concept of woman, concept of human being. There's these perfect forms that fulfill a perfect function. So that's where that comes from. So objective here doesn't mean that it exists outside of someone's mind. Instead, it's like the perfect version of these morals. If these morals are perfected, what is the perfect version of these morals? And there you go. And it's very easy to see this on the opposite end. You can see what a vice does. It's very easy to see a vice and see that a vice is destructive. Virtue is harder to gauge because you can see bad people succeed and you don't always see good people succeed. So it's a little bit harder to understand what a perfect form of a virtue is. On the other hand, you can see a vice. If you see someone drinking too much, they get drunk. You see someone kill somebody, someone dies. Like, it's very easy to see the negative consequences. It's a lot harder to see the positive outcomes of virtues. So there you go. For question number 8, I personally don't believe in aliens. But if they did exist, then yes, they would have a God. And as there is only one God, that means that they would have the same ultimate creator, not necessarily that they worship the one God. And though I would expect their understanding to be different than ours, even though their interactions would be the same. So they still are interacting with the same universe, with the same rules of physics and the same rules of logic, but their understanding of those rules might be different. The example that I use would be the pre-Christians, which I talked about earlier when I mentioned Socrates. So like Socrates, Aristotle, Epictetus, while these people were clearly pagan, existing before the advent of Christianity when it comes to Socrates and Aristotle, their understanding of theology and morality is more similar to Christian theology and morality today than yours, than an anti-theist point of view. All right, and then number 9, and this is kind of my complaint about your questions and why I couldn't answer more of them. Your questions are too focused on a Protestant Christian Western understanding of religion to give satisfactory answers to. No matter how much you use the word God generically or use terms like theist or creationist, it is very clear that you are talking about Christianity and the Bible. That your questions betray your bias and your culture. And here by betray, I mean to show or expose. And my question to you is, what is religious magic? I'd really like to know. As I have read many holy books from many, many cultures, and I've lately been delving into pre-Maoistic Chinese religions and practices, which do contain texts in scripture. So when atheistic or agnostic philosophers have the same rules and morals as religious ones, promising the same results for following the same tenets, I'm thinking here of Confucianism, How can you call that religious magic unless you're going to call Confucianism a religion? Which it doesn't have a god. So, and a lot of anti-theists like to claim that the only way you can have a religion is by having a god, which a lot of religious people say that's not the factor for a religion. A religion is the rites and traditions, but whatever. And then I'd like to explain one last thing, which is people have asked me, especially in videos before I got married, when I say that I'm a religious person, what that means. It means I took a vow. So see these books up here? These are prayer books. This is over there is the Book of Common Prayer. Then you're going to have the Divine Office, also called the Divine Liturgy. And then you're going to get to the Jewish stuff over here. I also have some Orthodox stuff in there. So basically it means that I took a vow. It means that, for instance, some people take holy orders. It means that I took up an office of some type in my religious tradition. Some people join a choir, some people sing, some people make a vow of celibacy, different things like that. It just means that there's an office that I pray and I do it devotionally. Devotionally means that I do it every day. So that's what religious means. It means that I have a vow and I'm participating in an office and possibly thinking about belonging to an order. That's all that means. So anyway, peace, like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this video. This cat I found outside my comic book store. She was squished. Her head was stuck between a stone bench and a cement wall, so she couldn't get out. So I saved her, and now I call her Squish. So this is Squish the cat. That's Frankencat, named for Frankenstein, and or Frankenstein's monster, really. And that's gonna be it. Hey, you wanna say hi? Say hi to the people. Hello. Hi, people.